Hi, this is DG from Jinx Games, and this tutorial is about how you can drag and drop cards inside a card game. Let's get started. First, I'm gonna play the game so you can see what's going on. I have 4 cards here, and when I click on a card, I can drag and drop this into the other hand, or if I drop it in an empty space, it's gonna go back to the last position, just like this. When I drag inside my hand, I can choose a position to sort them, and on the other side I can do the same. Okay. First I'm gonna start by showing all the components that we're gonna need on the game objects, and also gonna show my game objects here. Gonna start here with the canvas. So my render mode is screen space overlay, and well, you can see all the other settings here. I think this is pretty standard, so if it isn't, you can just copy what's standing here. Then I have my placeholder, so let me open some parts here and turn this on so you can see what it is. And this is just an empty card, and I have the image turned off so you can't see it, and this just makes the empty space when I'm sorting. And turn this off again. On this placeholder I have this layout element, and with a preferred width of 60 and a preferred height of 100, and a flexible width and height to 0. And the reason I have this is because when I have this inside this hand, I'm using horizontal layout group, and if I don't have this, it's gonna resize my cards, and I don't want that. I want to keep them in the same size, and that's why we need to set this up. Then I have this canvas group, and what it does is I disable the interactable, so it cannot interact with anything, and also I'm not blocking any raycasts, so if I do a raycast, it's gonna go right through. Next I have my top hand, and so I have here this horizontal layout group and spacing for 3 and child alignment center. So when I drop some cards in, it's gonna sort this automatically. It's, well, not really sort, it's gonna position these cards in here, and so they're gonna be nice next to each other, as you could see when I played the game. So that's the purpose of this horizontal layout group. And on the bottom hand I have just the same, and the FSMs I'm going to show you afterwards. Then this event system is made by Playmaker, I believe, and you should not remove this. The same as this Playmaker GUI and Playmaker UGUI. Then I have a game manager and a card manager, and I have a prefab, and that is my card. On the prefab I have here this simple UI sprite image, and you can use your own stuff, of course, just so I have something to show. Then I have a layout element, and with a preferred width of 70, preferred height of 100, and flexible width and height to 0. And again, this is just so my card does not get deformed from this horizontal layout group. Then I have a Playmaker UGUI pointer event proxy, and I have a Playmaker UGUI drag event proxy. And this is just to trigger this on pointer down and on pointer up. So when I click and hold, and when I release, this is gonna be triggered. Then I also have a Playmaker UGUI drag event proxy, and this is just gonna send an event while I'm dragging. Then I also have my canvas group here, because while dragging I need to unblock the raycasts on my cards. So I'm raycasting only on my hands and on the empty field. And now it's time to show you the FSMs. I'm gonna start with the game manager, and the first thing I'm gonna do is create an object, and I'm creating my card here, and I'm gonna store my card into a variable so I can do some stuff with that card. And the next thing I'm doing is set transform parent, and what I'm doing is I'm gonna set my card into this top hand. As you can see here, the card and parent into top hand. I use set transform parent as when I use set parent, I'm getting errors. It does work, but I'm just getting some errors here, and I don't like errors, so that's why I use set transform parent. And probably the reason is because I'm doing this inside the canvas. Then I'm using set FSM game object, and I'm gonna set a variable on my card. So here is my FSM name, card, and variable name card manager, and I'm gonna set my card manager on this variable, and I will show you here. So I'm gonna set this object here so I can communicate with my card manager. And for the card, I'm just doing get owner here, so I'm also getting my card here, also again to do some stuff here, but I will show this after. Then I'm using set name, and this will just set the name after I place this here. I'm just gonna rename them to card 1, card 2, 3, and 4, as it just looks nicer here. You don't have to do this, but I just like to do that. Then I'm adding this card to this first cards array. So this is my array, it's empty now, and I'm gonna add the card. And then after I add this card, I also change the color from my card just to have different colors on my card. And the second one, so I'm doing everything the same again here. So I'm getting a new object as a card, and set this, add this to the array, set the name, and change the color. And the same for card 3 and card 4. Then after all the cards are finished, I'm using set FSM array, and I'm gonna copy this this array. So I have my 4 cards inside, and I'm gonna copy this to the array on my top hand, so on this one. So later on I'm going to use this to know which cards are inside here and which cards are inside here. So let's get back here. So I have my top hand specified here, and the FSM name on drop, and cards. And then I set the value from first card array and copy the values. Next I'm going to show you my card prefab, and the first thing I'm doing is get owner. So I'm getting my card here, and I'm going to store this in this variable. And the card manager should be set already by the game manager. Then I'm using this on pointer down, so these are triggered here by this component, Playmaker UGUI pointer event proxy. And as you can see here, on down event is going to send this UGUI on pointer down, and then on up event gonna send this UGUI on pointer up. Also I have here for the drag event, I have this on drag event UGUI on drag. Then on pointer down, when I press a card, it's gonna trigger this. And the first thing I'm doing is set FSM game object, and I'm gonna set my card onto the card manager variable here on the card. As you can see here, I'm gonna place this on this card, and then I can use this in here. after the game card is set, I'm gonna do this send event by name. And important is I'm using this action sequence to be sure that my FSM game object has been set to the card manager before it sends this event. So I'm sending this event by name to the card manager, and I'm sending this on pointer down event. And I'll just show you quick the other ones also. So on drag, I'm gonna just send an event on drag to this card manager, and on pointer up, I'm also sending this on pointer up to this card manager. Now the first version that I made, I had this all on my card. Also these other FSMs here were all on my card, and so if I would make a bunch of cards, each card would have these FSMs, and so I would have many FSMs also, and so I thought it's better to make this card manager and have everything here, and just a single FSM which will send events to this manager to do some stuff with my card. So later on, if I would have more cards, I can easily adjust some stuff here if there is something wrong with it. Else, if I would have this on my card, I needed to change this on every card. So let's look to this. So the first thing I'm doing is get parent. So I'm getting the parent where I took the card from. So if I click here and I get a card, then I'm getting the top hand, and when I click here, I'm getting the bottom hand. Let me show you quickly. So I'm just gonna drop one down here, and you have to look about here. Then you can see when I click a card on the top, you can see top hand, and when I click a card on the bottom, you can see bottom hand. If on your project you cannot see this, you have to turn this debug on, and then you can see what's happening with your variables, which can be very useful sometimes. Okay, the reason I get this is so if I'm gonna drag this card and I'm gonna drop it somewhere outside the hands, then it's gonna go back to the previous parent, and that's why I need the old parent also. Next, I have this get transform sibling index, and this is a custom action, and it's gonna look in the parent on what position the card is. So let me just drop some cards in here and just duplicate these, and I can just put them random around here. Then with this sibling, if I would get this card would be selected here, it's gonna look from the parent here, and it's gonna look on what position this is. So it's from index, so an index starts from 0, so this is gonna be 0, 1, 2, and it will continue 3, 4, 5 until it got everything from the list. So now my index number is 2, and that's going to be on this position. And I need this later to put the placeholder and also to place a card back afterwards. So that's why I use this get transform sibling index. Then after I got the index here, I'm using set transform parent, and I'm setting my placeholder. I'm setting my placeholder inside the top hand or the bottom hand, depending on where did I click on a card. So if I click on a card in the top, it's gonna place the placeholder in here, and when I click on a card in the bottom, it's gonna place the placeholder in here. Then the reason I use set transform parent actually is because when I use set parent, I get some errors in the console, and well, not really errors, I believe it's just warnings, and I don't like that, so that's why I use the set transform parent. And probably the reason is because I'm using this inside the canvas, so it's better just to use this to be sure. Then I'm using the get position 2D, so I'm gonna get the card position, and if you look to the card, let me drop one in again, and in scene, this is gonna be the position, so it's gonna take the center from this card. And if my pivot point here would be up here, then it's gonna take this card, but I want this to be on the center. After I got this position, so get the position from the card, then I use get last pointer data info, and I'm gonna get the position where I click from the mouse position or the position from my finger, depending on which platform you are. And so if I would press on the card on this position, so it would get the position from my mouse here, and then after that, so that's going to be the world position, and after that I'm using this vector 2 operator, and I have my mouse position here or finger position, so that would be here, and then on vector 2 I have the position from my card, that would be in the center. Then I'm gonna subtract this, so I have this mouse minus position from the card, and this is gonna get me this offset result. And I will show you after in the on drag. I'm gonna use this offset to move the card. And the reason I have this offset is if I would not have this offset, the card would, once I drag, the card would go to the center, and it just doesn't look nice. Let me just maybe show this also, what I mean. So let me turn this off first. So I have this operator, I turn it off, so the result is going to be 0, 0. So when I start dragging a card, when I click on the card, once I move, you see what happened, it jumps to the center, and that just doesn't look nice. So that's why when I turn this on again, as you can see, it stays nice on the place where I clicked on it. So that's just a visual thing. If you don't like it, you can do it without. If you like it, you can do it with. It depends on you. So let's see, we got this operator. Then I have this UGUI canvas group set properties. What I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna turn off my raycast on my card. And the reason I'm doing this is because while I'm dragging, I want to see what's behind my card. So I want to see if it's on this hand or empty space or on this other hand. And if I don't turn this off, it's only gonna register my card. So it's gonna turn off this, and then I won't see my card with a raycast from moving. Then I'm doing this set transform parent, and I'm gonna parent the card that I picked to the canvas. And the reason I do this, I will just show you. is if I don't do this, the card is going to go behind other cards, and as you can see, I get some strange things going on even. And well, that's ugly, so we don't want this. And that's why we have this set parent. And then as you can see, when I pick a card, it stays on top of everything. And you can see here the card 1 is at the bottom of the list here, and everything above is gonna be underneath this other card. Okay. Then I have this activate game object, and this is gonna activate the placeholder. So I will have this empty space from this empty card that I can use to move around. Then I have this set FSM game object, and this is a kind of a failsafe for if I didn't move my card, this on drag will not be triggered. And so the on pointer drag also will not register anything. And so this is gonna send this card that I picked to my top hand or bottom hand depending on where I picked it. And let me go here to explain this. So here I have this UGOI on drop event. So when I release my card here, it's gonna trigger this on drop. Then it's gonna do this get last pointer data info, and it's gonna look for the pointer drag. So if I didn't drag, it's not gonna find any drag from this. So this is gonna be none. And that's why I need to do this in the card manager on pointer down. I want this variable to set the card in here. So if I didn't drag, it's still gonna have something. Then also it's gonna check if the game object tag is a card, because let me turn this off and show you. I can also click on this hand, and when moving, it doesn't move the hand, but it's registered. So when I release it here, you see it's gonna parent it inside here, and yeah, we don't want that. So we turn this on again, and we just check if it's a card, and if it's a card, then continue. If it's not a card, finish and do nothing. Okay. Then next we have this get transform sibling index, and it's going to get the position from this placeholder card. And then I have this set transform parent, and it's going to parent my card to the top hand, or in the bottom one is going to set to the bottom hand. And so it will be parented to this hand. And then I'm using this set transform sibling index to position this on the position where the empty card was. And then I'm adding this card to my array list on my hand here. So when I play, you can see I have 1, 2, 3, 4. When I click this card, it's gonna be removed. And that's going to be in the on pointer down from the card manager also. And when I drop it back in, as you can see, it's also back here. So this remove card is sent also here on pointer down afterwards. As you can see here, remove card. And what happens here is it's gonna check the card that I took, and so it's gonna look if this card is inside this array, and then getting the index, and then it's gonna delete on that index. So it's gonna delete the card that I took. And the bottom hand is exactly the same. So where are we now? Let me see. So we activate it and then we set this object. Then also we set game object here. So we get the old parent where I took the card and set this as a current hand. So that also the same reason for if I didn't drag it yet, I still want this to be in this current hand. Then I already showed you this one, the undrop, to remove the card from the hand. Then I have this disable raycast, which I will show you in a minute. And also this send event to this check placeholder, which will check for the placeholder that is also here, which I will show you also afterwards. And also for the check hand, I'm also sending this event by name. Why I'm using this send event by name, and I could also use this just the standard send event, but then I have globals and I just wanted to make this without any globals. So if I use this send event by name, I can send event to objects, let's say check hand, hand checker, events, and you see nothing is set to global. So in this way I can send events without using any globals. You just have to be sure that your name is spelled right, else it won't work, and that's all. Okay, now on drag, the first thing I'm gonna do here is to set a bool value is dragged, and this is gonna be later. So if I'm gonna release, to know if I've been dragging or not, and I will show you after what will happen there. So while dragging, I'm getting this current hand, and I will show you this. So while I'm dragging, you can see here, when I'm on the top hand, you can see the top hand. When I'm on an empty space, it's none. And on the bottom hand, you can see bottom hand. And also I'm getting this position. And the position here, I will use the offset on it and subtract it to get this new position. And then I use this set position to move my card. And of course I have this all on every frame, just like this one also. So it continues moving. And as you can see here, when I drag the card, I subtract the offset here, and then this result is going to be here on the new position to make sure my card doesn't jump to the center of my mouse. And well, that's everything here for the movement here. Then when I release the card, I'm gonna send this on pointer up, and first thing I'm gonna do is gonna test if I've been dragging or not. If it's not dragged, then it's gonna set my card back to this old parent, so where I took it from. And also the sibling index is gonna be the same because I didn't move, so it's also gonna set this back to the same index here. Then if it was dragged, then I have to turn this is dragged off, so for the next time. Then I'm gonna check if the current hand, so the current hand, what I got here from this pointer data, if this current hand is a top hand, or if it's a bottom hand, or if it's none of them. So if it's top, it's gonna do this done event, and if it's bottom, it's gonna do this done event. And if none of them is equal, it's gonna set this back. So it's gonna also set the hand back. So if I release it here, it's gonna go back to the last position there. So if it's on one of the hands, it will skip this and it will continue here, and it's gonna turn the raycast back on the card. Then it's gonna activate, or actually deactivate, this placeholder, so that empty card gonna be gone, well, invisible. Then I use the send event by name for my placeholder checker, and it's just gonna send this end check, so it will stop checking. Also for my hand checker, it's gonna set to idle, so it's not checking anymore. And then also my ray card manager to enable the cards back here. So in here, it's gonna disable these cards. So when I move around, it's also not raycasting these other cards. Also this check placeholder, so when I pick up a card, it's gonna start check the placeholder, so it's gonna check this empty card where it needs to be placed. And here also it's gonna check the hand. So that's about it for this card manager. So let's first do this ray card manager. And what this does is, when it got a disable event, then it's gonna get the array from the top hand, and it's gonna get this array from the bottom hand. So it's gonna get these cards from the top and from the bottom hand. And then I'm using array get next, and my start and my end index is set to 0, as I don't know how many cards will be inside. And then it will just loop until all cards has been done. So it's gonna get this card as a result here, and then it's gonna turn off the raycast on each card. Then when that's done, it's gonna go to the next one here, and it's gonna do the same here for the array list on the bottom here, so for the cards on the bottom here, and turn the raycasts off. Then the enable raycast is actually exactly the same, except instead of turning off the raycast, we're gonna turn them on again, as you can see. And that's all what this ray card manager does. Then we do the placeholder checker. So when check placeholder event has been sent, it's first is gonna get this card from this card FSM. So it's gonna get the card value, and then it's gonna get the FSM value here from the old parent, and it's gonna place this as a current parent. And it's just an array resize. I'm just gonna empty this array to 0. So and this is going to be used afterwards. Then I have my get next child, so I'm going to get the childs from this current hand. So I'm going to get the child objects on this hand or on this hand. Then I'm going to check if it's a card, and if it's not a card, so if it's the placeholder, then it's just doing the next card. And it's gonna add this to this array, and then next until all the cards are inside my array list, and then it's done. And then it's gonna get this current hand, use all parent current hand. And the reason I do this here again, so here I'm doing this for the first time, and here I'm doing it again if I need to recheck. So that's why if I would be on the other place, I need to recheck, and then I have to look here. So I need to know if it's on this hand. Then I'm getting the position from this card. So I'm only getting the X position from this card. And also I'm turning off this reset bool value for my let me see, that's for here, for my array get next. And this is because when I'm looking which position, it might not be finished all the way, so each time when I need to check again, I have to reset again. So here what I'm doing is I'm getting each card and I'm gonna compare left. So I'm getting the position from this card so the card in the child, and then I'm gonna compare this card I'm holding, and I'm also gonna compare this card that is from this list. And then if it's equal, it's not going to be on the left side. If it's greater, it's not going to be on the left side. If it's less, then it's going to be on the left side. And then I need to move the placeholder. So if it's not left, it's going to look to the next card and the next card until it's done. And then if nothing was found, so it needs to add 1 to this index, else the position won't be right. And so if there was one, then it's gonna set this transform sibling index to this placeholder. So the child index is gonna be the new placeholder index position. And then I have a next frame, else this will infinite loop. So I check this once every frame, and then as you can see, it goes back here to get the current hand. So if I would be on this other place, so it needs to know that it's a different hand that it needs to look. So let me play this, and as you can see now, when I move around, things are happening here, and it's going every frame. So it's looping from here until here. This is looping once every frame. You can't really see it now while playing, but once I do this, it's looping every frame. If I move to the other hand, I have this recheck, and that is sent from my hand checker, but I will show you in a minute. What this does is it just gonna get the FSM game object from the current hand. So while moving on the card here, card manager while moving, so I get this current hand, and it's gonna get this hand which currently is inside here. And also it's resetting this card list again, because just to be sure that the right cards are inside here. So, and also it's gonna place then the parenting here on this side. And I think that's about what we have here. So then we have my hand checker. So I'm gonna get this event, check hand. Then I'm getting this current hand from my card here. So from my card FSM, and that's gonna be my current hoover. Then I'm gonna wait if this is changed. So let me play, and now it's on top hand, and it's changed because it's empty, and it changed again because it's on the bottom hand. So as you can see, that works the moment when the object in here was changed. If it's a different object, then it's gonna send this change event. Then I'm gonna check my hand. So I'm gonna compare the tag if it's top hand or a bottom hand, and If it's a top or bottom hand, it's gonna be it's gonna send this set hand event, and if both are none, so also you need to have the action sequence on here, and if both have no hand, so if you dropped it in here, then it's gonna send this false event, and it's just gonna disable the placeholder and nothing else. Then if there is a hand here, then it's gonna activate this placeholder and set parent to this current hand, so to the current hoover. So if it's here, it's gonna parent it here. If it's here, it's gonna parent here, and then it does this recheck. So it's gonna send a recheck to the placeholder. Right. So I think we're about done here now. So best thing is you play around with it, and then you can understand how things worked, and you can read again here. Also, everything is documented, so you can look to them if you want. Thank you for watching. If you liked the tutorial, please like the video and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. You can support my work by becoming a patron at Patreon, or donate me with PayPal, or purchase my assets on the asset store. You can find the links in the descriptions below.